took Norco-10s for chronic pain for approximately 3 years. I never took anything illegal. I eventually decided I no longer wanted to be dependent on the opioid medication I was taking for my chronic pain. I first tried to do it by myself, sort of cold turkey, but got sick. I probably should have called my doctor, but I was being stubborn at the time, so I ended up checking myself into a drug rehab center. On the first day, I was horribly sick due to the protocols they were giving me, and basically I vomited for 24 hours. I guess that is part of it. The other thing, though, is I started swelling. My feet started swelling, my legs started swelling, and by the fourth day I had gained 25 pounds. I had continued to tell them that this was not normal for me. I don't swell like this, and that I do have a history of chronic blood clotting due to my genetic disorder called factor V Leiden. On the fourth day, I finally had to threaten to call 911 to get them to send me to the hospital. I also called my wife to have her meet me there. With my history of chronic blood clotting, I've been to the ER multiple times. I have always had very good experiences. In fact, I've always called my hospital network the Cadillac of hospitals. This time I was treated horribly. After sitting for several hours in an ER room, my doctor finally arrived, and pretty much the first thing she said was, "What exactly do you want us to do? You've been on almost every blood thinner available." I was kind of taken aback by that because obviously I was in some form of distress. After we talked about that for a second, I said, I've also gained all this weight in just a short period of time, and my feet are swollen and my legs are swollen. And all she said was, "Do you feel any heavier?" At that time, my wife kind of jolted up like, "What?" And it's at this moment that the doctor looked over at my wife and said, "And who exactly are you to this patient?" Of course, Pam said she was my wife, but just the way she talked to us and just the way I was treated by her and the other staff members was just not my normal experience at this particular hospital. It is my opinion that I was treated this way because the staff felt like I was wasting their time. I think they felt like I was just another junkie trying to get my fix for the day. I was transferred to the hospital from the drug rehab center via ambulance, and my paperwork did state that I came from a drug rehab center. I was offered no pain medication, nor did I ask for any, and I believe when my wife stood up for me, they were trying to kick her out, thinking maybe she was staff from the rehab center instead of my wife. The real story here, though, is how the doctors actually treated me because they thought I was a junkie. I was at the rehab center to detox off of legal medication that I had received legally. There was absolutely no way I was going to let this hospital give me any sort of opioid narcotic. I was not starting that ordeal again. I am pleased to say that I was successfully detoxed off of my pain medication. I don't have any medication on hand, nor am I having any cravings at all. The easy part is the detox for most heroin addicts. The hard part is the psychological need for the drug. I got lucky and I had no psychological need for the pain medication other than for pain, and it had pretty much stopped working by now. I'd been on it for so long. I did, though, get to see how your average addict is treated by, the medical field and medical professionals. During my second hospital stay, I was interviewed by a patient advocate, and my story will actually be included in a future in-service on just this particular subject. As for me, I think this story would have had a completely different ending if the hospital I was sent to hadn't treated me just like a junkie off the street. The following day, I checked myself out of the rehab center against the rehab center's advice. It's my opinion this particular rehab center was more interested in money than helping people. In fact, they wanted to put me in a group home for 3 months and charge my insurance $23,000. They had already checked my insurance and, in fact, had called my insurance a Cadillac plan. So I believe they were going to try to squeeze out as much money from us as they could. The thing is, they were not just not listening to me because of the swelling in my feet. My blood sugars were running 400 and 500, which is completely unacceptable. But they would not listen to me when I tried to explain how my doctor was doing my insulin. It even said on my stuff how it was supposed to be done, and my doctor was only a phone call away. All they wanted to do was count my weight versus my current blood sugar. I count carbs, so I definitely wasn't willing to spend 3 more months, having them not give me my medication properly. I'd probably die of a diabetic coma if I did. I was already hardly eating any carbs, trying to keep my numbers down. It just wasn't working. After I checked myself out, I did manage to get in to see my general practitioner almost right away. And she was a little upset that I had not talked to her about help getting off of the medication. This is my new doctor. She had already started weaning me off the pain meds. We had dropped from the 10s to the 5s. So I was already getting half the medication that I had originally been getting. My problem was I was starting to go through different withdrawals. So I basically kind of got stubborn, which is why I ended up at the rehab center in the first place. She was also upset that the ER I had visited the day before had not done anything about the swelling in my legs or checked me for any other signs of blood clotting. 24 hours later, I was rushed to the hospital because I was having trouble breathing. Turns out I had actually developed a deep vein thrombosis, and part of that had broken loose and went into my lungs. Because I was such a waste of time for the first hospital I had visited, I could have died. While at the rehab center, I tended to hang out with more of the alcoholics than I did the people that were there for narcotics, simply because most of the alcoholics were closer to my age. I did actually get the chance, though, to talk to several of the people who were there to stop taking narcotics. Sadly, most of them will probably be dead in the next 5 years. They are not there because they want to be there. They're there because of either a court order or an ultimatum from their family. During the little bit of downtime that we had, many of them talked about how the first thing they were going to do when they got out was to call their dealer. During some of those conversations, I learned that most of the addicts that were there because of heroin. Almost all of them started by using legal opioid pain medications after having surgery or for chronic pain, just like me. Most of us had actually signed a narcotics agreement with our doctor. At any time, your doctor can pull you in for a drug test or have you bring your medication and count them. Fortunately for me, I never broke that agreement. One girl I spoke with, though, wasn't so lucky. She had smoked a joint while she was hanging out with a few friends and then got pulled in by her doctor for a drug test. Her doctor cut her completely off of pain medication. She started buying pain medication off the street. Unfortunately, black market pain medication is extremely expensive. Heroin is not. Compared to black market pain medication, heroin is very cheap, but not cheap enough once she reached the point where she could no longer work. Still, she needed her fix just to function normally during the day. The only commodity that she had left was her body. This was her 5th time at rehab. The opioid problem in this country is huge. What isn't is charity drug rehab. I have good insurance, so I was able to get into treatment long before I stepped over to the dark side. By the time many people hit rock bottom, they have nowhere to go, no money, and basically no life. If they can even find a charity center, it can take weeks before they get a bed. That's an awful lot of time to overdose and die. I know someone right now who wouldn't have a criminal record if that same drug rehab center that I went to had admitted her that night when she was seeking help. She lacked good insurance and money. She was arrested for shoplifting before a charity bed could open up. Many addicts shoplift so that they can sell the items for less than the store is offering them for, so that they can then buy heroin. My 6-day stay in rehab cost $3,000. How many addicts have that kind of money on hand? It's a hell of a catch-22. Unfortunately, there's no incentive to open up more beds. There's no money to be made. When it comes to heroin addiction, the success rate goes up with medical detox and counseling. Unfortunately, most addicts don't have enough money for either. Of course, we can't expect counselors, doctors, and centers to work for free. These people also have bills to pay. This is why donating to programs like Brianna's Hope is very important. Just one of us may not be able to send somebody to rehab, but 100 of us can. I have personally felt very, very heavy withdrawal symptoms. I got lucky. My story could have ended completely different. Thank you for listening.